Among countless notable achievements in exploration, 5 firsts achieved by our members define the legacy of the Explorers Club. 1909, the North Pole. 1911, the South Pole. 1953, the highest point on Earth, summiting Mount Everest. 1960, the lowest point on Earth, the Marianas Trench. 1969, the surface of the Moon, the Apollo 11 mission.
The club's founding mission, to promote exploration by all means possible, remains our driving force. Headquartered in New York City with a community of chapters around the world, the Explorers Club supports scientific expeditions of all disciplines and unites our members in the bonds of good fellowship. Historic flags are carried on our most distinguished expeditions. Our members are storytellers and changemakers. We are driven by the instinct to explore, forge new frontiers, and push boundaries for the scientific advancement of human knowledge. We are explorers. Together, Fjällräven and the Explorers Club inspire the world to walk with nature. Join us each month for a thought-provoking and exciting new episode featuring explorers from around the world as they share their work and stories from the field. Our goal is to push the boundaries of curiosity, explore the wild around us, and inspire new and seasoned explorers to discover nature in a new way. The sense of togetherness with nature has never been more crucial. This is the Explorers Club Fjällräven Speaker Series.
So when it comes to what experience in nature really set me on my course, it happened at the age of 6 up in the Swiss Alps. So I was up there with my parents and my 2 older brothers having a snowball fight in the summertime because we were up at 10,000 feet. I also saw my first avalanche, though I didn't understand what that was at the time. And I think it really had this imprinting effect on me where I just fell in love with nature and the outdoors.
The experience that planted the seed for me to become a mountaineer was my first visit to that volcano, Popocatépetl, next to Mexico City. My father took me there when I was 10 years old, and I was just in love with the glaciers and the alpine environment. I thought it was incredible, magical.
Hi everyone, I'm Uli.
I'm Ricardo.
We wanted to start this conversation by talking about getting out into nature during these crazy times during the pandemic. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think now it's as good time, if not even more important, to get out in nature. There are a lot of great benefits, I think, that you can get from the exercise and the time outdoors. You know, one of the best things we can do about staying healthy is boost our immune system. And you can boost your immune system through healthy diet and exercise. And especially the exercise outdoors gives you the exposure to the sun, gives you vitamin D. It's good for the mind when you're in contact with nature. It's relaxing. You know, it's like...
Absolutely. I mean, that endorphin release, right? Like when we go out for a run and we have a chance to have a conversation. And there's ways to still stay safe while being out there, right? Like you should be having masks and things being worn when you're in close contact with people. But the beauty of being out in nature is there is so much space out there.
Yeah. You're not on top of each other, so you're keeping distance from other people. Definitely. But the communing with nature, you know, it brings peace of mind. It de-stresses you. I think you always feel better if you have a good day in nature, right?
We always do, especially if we can get out into the mountains. You know, we're lucky enough here to live in Colorado where the mountains are so close for us, but it doesn't mean you can't still get outside wherever you're living, right? I mean, you go out to the beach, for example, if you live near the ocean, get out into the forests, anything that will have you out in nature Like you said, soaking up that sun too, because that is so important.
Even if it's like a park, you know, so New York City, Central Park, go for a walk there. I think you'll notice the difference. That outdoor exercise is much more interesting than being in a gym. A lot less dangerous now with the pandemic. A lot more fun and a lot better for you.
So one of the things I love about getting out into nature is all the unforgettable experiences you can have and the new friends that you can make. And sometimes really incredible things can happen too. And you have a particular story about that in the Andes. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. Pursuing your passions in nature can lead you to really incredible experiences. I was always fascinated with the story of the Andes survivors. And so in 2005, after I was guiding Aconcagua, the highest of the Andes, I decided to go visit the place of the plane crash where that story of Alive had happened. And while I was up there, I ended up exploring, climbing up the mountain on a gully that nobody had been there before, and found the coat of one of the Andes survivors. The owner of this coat was Eduardo Strauch. He had taken his coat off during the flight, put it on a shelf of the plane. The plane had crashed in the Andes and slid down this gully, but it broke in two pieces. And when it broke, that coat went flying, landed on that gully. The rest of the plane went down to the glacier where they lived their experience, the whole 72 days that they were trapped. But the coat ended up there, stayed up there for 33 years until I found it, you know, in 2005. The accident happened in 1972. And that led me eventually to connect with the survivor, with Eduardo Strauch, and become really good friends. And incredible things have happened because of that. It's changed my life. Because of that, I led expeditions for National Geographic to retrace the escape route.
That was the first time anyone had done that, right?
That's right. That's right. The first time that escape expedition was repeated was that National Geographic expedition.
And as your background as a mountaineer, like, how did it feel to you? Like, how were they able to actually do this?
It was incredible to see. They crossed the crest of the Andes and all the way into Chile, and they were able to do that because they were rugby players that were fit to begin with, but they were starving. They didn't have gear, didn't have an experience, but they built what they could of equipment from what they had. They learned through those 62 days before they crossed the Andes on that 10-day expedition. So, and they had incredible willpower and strength, physical and mental strength. So, and luck too. Mm-hmm. So we retraced that escape route. That discovery also led me to do trips every year with the survivor, the last drought. You've gone on some of those with us.
Those have been amazing. My first time up there was very emotional, very moving. I didn't really know what to expect, and just connecting with the place that way, and also just imagining what it was like. And they spent all those days on the glacier, and also just seeing how different the glacier looks like now.
Yeah,
it's been ravaged by climate change. I mean, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, that's, and I can imagine for so many people that also is incredible.
Yeah, and discovering all you can still find airplane parts and clothing and stuff that's coming out of the glacier. Yeah. So we do annual trips, Eduardo and I. I've been involved in many documentaries, and I've become sort of an expert at this because I go there every year and I've done a lot of research. But one of the great things is the impact it has had on other people. Eduardo and I are always really impressed how moving that story is for other people. For people to go there, you know, I bring groups there for people that are interested in that story, and to see the place and to hear the story from Eduardo Strauch, what it was like to survive those 72 days trapped until they were rescued by helicopters. Once the two survivors crossed the Andes, made contact with civilization, and then brought helicopters. It was 72 days by the time from the crash, by the time they were rescued. So that story is very moving, but it inspires a lot of people. And so Eduardo and I have it's incredible. More than 200 people have come on our expeditions, and we've given talks in Washington, D.C., and in Mexico, and Argentina, and Uruguay. And the impact it's had on people is really mind-blowing.
Well, I'm curious about the impact, though, for you finding that coat. Like, what did you think it was when you first saw something sticking out of the rocks? What was that?
I didn't know what I saw blue clothing sticking out of there, and we thought, could it be? We weren't sure if all the bodies had been removed from out there. It's like, could it be a body out there? And so we took it out and realized it was a coat, and then inside the coat found a wallet and passport. And I was like, wow! And then saw the name Eduardo Strauch. That was incredible. So you never know what nature has in store for you. I've had also incredible experiences, whether it's in Denali or in the Alps or in
all of our expeditions too.
All the trips that we've done,
amazing.
Everest. You create friendships. You create memories that are just unforgettable and very, very special. Ulyana and I started a project called Summit Songs in Science because we want to promote mountaineering, music, and science. Through mountaineering, we want to promote people getting out in nature because we think that it has a lot of great benefits. We want to promote exercise and healthy living, people leading healthier lifestyles. We believe that helps make everybody happier. If you have more health and if you're in contact with nature, you're more likely to have happy, fulfilling lives, and better relationships, and everything can be better, I think, if you live in a balanced way with nature. Music we're promoting because we like to promote culture too. We think it's important, the appreciation of culture and things that give you pleasure, that you enjoy. Being aware of the arts or music is something that can bring a lot of fulfillment and a lot of joy to people's lives. And then science, because we do believe that rational thinking and science awareness can also help people make much better decisions about how to live their lives, how to treat the planet, how to take care of themselves, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Ulyana can tell us a lot more about science, being a PhD in science. What do you think are ways that science can help the public?
Yeah, so science is near and dear to my heart. I mean, it's something I've been doing from a very young age. And in fact, many people do science from a young age before even realizing it. If you asking questions and making observations. So really just trying to promote that critical thinking skills.
Yeah, that sense of wonder.
Yeah,
that we all have when we're kids.
Curiosity.
It gets lost among adults too easily.
Absolutely, you hit it right on the head. And that's what I've been really trying to create through teaching, whether it's at the college level. At Colorado College, I teach a climate change class, huge topic right now that we really need to be really focused on, but also the lay public, the greater public who may be misinformed on science or intimidated by it. So really trying to remove that part of it and really showing science can be fun, interesting, adventurous, and so being able to communicate that in effective ways. So I started these Science Wednesdays also. So every week I talk about some topic relevant to the situation at hand. Like this week, for example, we're talking about huge temperature swings here in Colorado. We're going from 100 degrees Fahrenheit and raging wildfires to 30 degrees and snow. And that's not just Colorado having wild weather.
Right.
Climate change is playing a role in that. So really having people identify with these experiences, sometimes extreme in nature, and really trying to understand more about the science driving that, but also trying not to paint a picture of hopelessness or bleakness, that there are things we still can do, to conserve our planet.
Yeah, the bottom line is that if you are scientifically literate, if you understand where the science community stands, you realize that there's no debate about climate change. Climate change is a fact. It's only, presented as if there's a big debate because of companies that are interested in economic, gains, or political parties that are connected to those companies. But as far as the international scientific community, it's all in agreement. We know it's human caused. We know climate change is real. It's human caused, and we know a lot of things that we could do. Mm-hmm. So being scientifically aware shows us, what a serious problem. We are destroying the planet, and we need to take care of it because this is the only thing we have. And this is going to affect not just us, like it is now, but our kids and grandkids, if we don't act now. So I think that's very important. Science is also very important in helping you make better decisions based on reality.
Yeah, and evidence, absolutely.
Right, the scientific method and evidence is what science used to make decisions to see what is, to get you closer to truth.
Exactly. That's the closest we're going to get, right? I mean, this is our best tools that we have available to us. So
that helps you make better decisions in your life, as opposed to based on wishful thinking or political propaganda or other things. One of the things that connects nature with this topic to me is if you look at human beings from a biological perspective, you realize, you understand evolution, and you understand that we've evolved living a certain way as a species. We were we've been on this planet more than 200,000 years. Between 250 and 500,000 years is when you can define the Homo sapiens species, right? So in those years, we've lived a certain way, and we had a balance with nature, because we were small in numbers, and we would have exercise, contact with nature, healthy diet. It was just, we were
by necessity, born out of necessity.
It was our natural habitat, and so we had to survive on that.
Exactly.
Now we've created this urban life that is very convenient, that you have heat and beds and running water and all this stuff, but unfortunately it removes so much activity. Natural activity is what we need, right? And we don't have it because our modern urban life has taken that away. Now we have to actually exercise just to stay healthy, so that our muscles won't atrophiate and everything. So nature, having contact with nature is a way, and exercising in nature to me is a way of keeping a little bit of that balance that we used to have. If you understand that we evolved to be active, to have some sunlight, to move your body around the way you do in nature, not where you have all these chairs and stairs and cars, but you actually have to be physical to survive. If you understand that, you realize why it's so important to be active, and why exercise in nature is even much more beneficial than just in a gym, for instance.
Absolutely. I think the only way the planet will literally be saved is if more people connect with nature, really understand where we came from and why it's so important to preserve. I know myself, I'm a scientist, I use facts and evidence and numbers, but there is this connection when I'm out there in the mountains or on the trails that just feels so primal, you know what I mean? And it's just, I wish more people could experience that and should experience that to understand, this is at stake. Right? This is literally at stake with what is happening with climate change.
Yeah, and if we don't live in some kind of balance, you can see the results. The results are, look at the United States. There's a lot of problems with obesity, drug addiction, depression, stress. All that is, to me, is a direct results of that urban modern living.
Nature cures that, right?
Exactly.
That's the beauty of it.
It's like, that's the thing. Is you can rebalance your life by getting out there, by being in contact with nature. One of the things we experience when we go to expeditions, right? The longer the expedition and the tougher it is, that means the more you're deprived of water, bed, cooking, fridge, refrigerators, restaurants, all this.
Yeah, all the creature comforts.
Oh, yeah, and so when you're camping at high altitude, and one of the great things is two things. One, the stress is gone. The stress that you get from not having answered all the emails and all these things that you bombarded through the internet, you don't have that stress when you don't have access to the internet. So you just, a task at hand, you establish camp, you move your camp, you do what you have to do physically, and then you cook your meal, put your shelter. It's simple.
I was just going to say, the simplicity of it is so beautiful. It's so freeing when you're saying from the stresses of everyday life.
And to me, I think it mimics kind of how we used to live. Right. It was a simpler life without all the internet connections and all that stuff, where you had to be physically active, where you had to just worry about shelter, food, and accomplishing certain tasks to survive. Right? So you have that, and it keeps you get rid of that city and urban living stress. That's one nice thing. Mm-hmm. But then you miss all the creature comforts, right? But when you come back from these expeditions, and this I learned from the Andy survivors too, they experience the same thing. When you come back, then you're so happy with just the simple things. Right. Just having food, hot meal, your bed, a toilet, running water is like, wow.
You're so much more appreciative of it. And I also had that experience. I lived in Nepal for nearly a year, you know, third world country, very different from what we have here. And there was like a reverse culture shock when I came back, and we have everything here. And it's like, we really need to appreciate, you know, the things that we have and never take more than we need. Yeah. Right? Like that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned from nature and also from living in another country.
And I think nature gives you that capacity to be happier with a lot less.
Yes.
If you deprive yourself, you have to deprive yourself. Work hard, hike hard all day long, or an overnight, or a week long, or whatever, and you'll see how you come back and you appreciate a glass of water and just sitting on a couch and like, oh, and you haven't been around chairs, right? And so long, it's like, oh, just the car is amazing. So that's another thing that nature gives you, that exercise in the outdoors, why getting out there is so important. It gives you the ability to be happier with less. One of my friends, a famous and world-class alpinist from Mexico City named Héctor Ponce de León, said at some point that he doesn't think there are like boring mountains. It's just more like a lack of imagination and creativity. He was guiding Kilimanjaro a lot of times, which is a very easy mountain for a technical world-class climber like him. But he came up with the idea of like doing a sea to summit ascent from Kenya, which hadn't been done before. So he biked and trail run to the summit in less than 48 hours. And that became a huge challenge. So the same mountain that was an easy trekking peak for someone like that can become this huge challenge, a world-class challenge type of thing. And I think that brings us to something very important. I think that's a great way to get inspired, is to use creativity, create your own goals, goals that will inspire you, right? If you're creative, you can make goals that will fit you, your fitness level, your preferences, what you enjoy, what you like doing, whether it's hiking, through hiking, like long trails, you know, like the Appalachian Trail, or collecting different summits, or accomplishing just one mountain, you know, it could be whatever. But I think the personalized thing is important because, you know, I was very inspired always by him, by Hector, but also by Uli Steck, you know, world-class climbers. But try as I might, you know, I don't have the genetics to be world-class climber like those people. I'm competent in my guiding, and I've done a lot of things, but not to that world-class level. So coming up with goals that I could accomplish really gave me a lot to do and to look forward to and to work towards. And so I did, for instance, our project, we have a list of peaks. We decided to climb the 7 summits, the 50 state high points, and then the 100 highest peaks in Colorado. And while finishing the state high points, instead of doing just straight hiking like on Maine, Katahdin, it's just a simple hike, or maybe a little scrambling through different routes. But I said, well, why not do a sea to summit? I said, I don't know if anybody had done that before. So we started in the coast, in the Atlantic coast, and Ulyana, very grateful. I'm very grateful. She was my support vehicle, and I biked all the way to Baxter State Park, and then we hiked it together, middle of a snowstorm.
Yeah, the weather changed fast on us. It was an adventure for both of us. Him biking and me driving the snackmobile around and making sure he stayed safe.
But then we hiked the summit in sub-zero temperatures and everything. But it was great. It was a good. Same thing in Mauna Kea. We did the summit ascent. It was 13,800 feet of elevation gain.
Big volcano.
So that's a lot, and that made you can drive up there and just say you did the state high point. But why would I want to do that? You know, the whole point is to have a challenge, something to look forward to, and so those are my big goals. I do things like that and trying to finish. And I think if you're creative, you can create your own list, your own project.
Whatever at your fitness level, like you said.
Yeah, and whatever you enjoy the most, whatever, not just what. Well, everybody's doing all the 14ers in Colorado. Well, make up your own goal. Why don't you climb the 10 highest, or the highest point in each county? You know, we look in your own counties. What about getting the highest point in your county, or in there's many things. Ulyana, for example, very creatively has been mixing science, her love for science, with mountaineering. And tell us a little bit about that, right?
No, I mean, when I was first starting out, I didn't know if it was even possible to mix the two. I hadn't really seen it done. So I'm like, how am I going to, continue to do scientific work on mountains? So I had to up my training, for example, and I credit you with that. I'm so inspired by you and the things that we've been able to do these last few years that I didn't think possible at the physical level. But then, yeah, doing these adventure science expeditions, trying to make science fun and interesting for people, who may find it pretty boring. But then let's use Kilimanjaro as an example, showing people, how did these volcanoes even get here? What are the geologic forces at play here? How in the world are there glaciers up top here? We're in Africa, we're near the equator, right? So how does all this work? So really telling people the story of how all this happened from the scientific perspective.
And why are those glaciers now melting?
Yes, and that's the other thing, is like these are like that canary and the climate change coal mine, if you will, where they are indicators of, a changing climate. And people can see this. They can walk up, they can touch the ice. If you just go down from the summit of Kilimanjaro, we take the clients there to actually go and literally touch the ice, because I think when you make that connection, you see like, wow, this is changing fast. Showing pictures just 10 years apart of these glaciers melting, standing on the same spot, people can stand and see like how much has changed. I think that's what changes minds and hearts, because like, wow, we stand to lose this. My children or grandchildren, again, might not be able to see this, and there's a lot at stake here. And so I think it was so cool that I was able to blend these interests and then share it with the world too, for people who may have wanted to explore both science and adventure and mountaineering, but didn't really know how to do it. And so it's kind of like easing people in and showing them this whole new world.
Yeah, that's why I think I would recommend to everyone, use creativity, use your imagination, and come up with the goals that are really going to motivate you, and have nature be your playground, because it's the best playground in the world.
Absolutely. And it's one we want to keep intact for the future generations.
For me, it was the first time I was on a glacier. I had been in school and didn't really know what to do with my life, and wanted to travel and sort of find out learning in school. So I flew down and began traveling. And one of the first places I went was to Pico de Orizaba, which is the tallest mountain in Mexico, and one of the highest in North America. And I strapped on crampons, had never had them on before, had an axe, and I got out onto really hard, slippery ice. A couple people had died the day before on the ice. It was so bad. And not only was I not scared, did I not fall, but I learned a lot and realized that I was really good at climbing. And so that sort of out of nowhere discovery that this is what I was really meant to do was incredibly exciting, and it really has changed everything about what I've done with my life.
I think, like many kids, the first aspect of nature that really captivated me was astronomy. And I just loved space. I wanted to be an astronaut. And that grew into something quite real. I went to school for astrophysics and dedicated my life to furthering space exploration. And the more I looked up, the more I realized that what was here on Earth is not just unique, but extremely valuable and deserved to be explored at its fullest.